The November rain drummed against the windows of our Munich apartment as I put the finishing touches on what would become the most important dinner of my life, though I didn't know it yet. The smell of sauerbraten filled our cozy kitchen, mixing with the aroma of fresh spätzle and the apple strudel cooling on the counter. After 15 years of marriage, I had perfected the art of hosting Marcus's family gatherings. Labeling, "Are you nearly finished?" Marcus called from the living room, where he was arranging wine glasses with military precision. Everything had to be perfect when his parents visited, especially his mother, Ingrid, whose critical I could spot a speck of dust from across the room. "Almost ready," I replied, smoothing down my navy dress and checking my reflection in the kitchen window. At 42, I still felt attractive, though Marcus rarely seemed to notice anymore. The woman staring back at me looked tired, her blonde hair pulled back in a practical bun, her blue eyes lacking the spark they once had. The doorbell rang promptly at 7, typical German punctuality. Marcus's parents arrived first, followed by his younger brother Klaus and his girlfriend, then his sister Anna with her husband and 2 children. Our 2-bedroom apartment suddenly felt cramped, but I had learned to make it work over the years. "Guten Abend, Petra," Ingrid said, air-kissing my cheeks while her sharp eyes scanned the dining room. "The table looks adequate." I bit back my response and smiled. "Danke, Ingrid. Please, make yourselves comfortable." The evening progressed smoothly. Conversation flowed over the perfectly prepared meal. Compliments on the tender beef, praise for the homemade spätzle, and Marcus's father Heinrich even asked for seconds. I felt a familiar warmth of satisfaction watching everyone enjoy my cooking. This was what I was good at, creating these moments of family connection, these memories around a shared table. As I cleared the main course dishes, Anna leaned over to help. "Petra, this was absolutely delicious. You really outdid yourself tonight." "Thank you," I said, genuinely touched. Anna had always been kind to me, unlike her mother, who seemed to view me as a disappointment, the woman who had never given Marcus children, who had never pursued a real career. "You should open a restaurant," Klaus's girlfriend, Sarah, chimed in. "Seriously, this is better than most places in the city." I laughed, feeling embarrassed by the attention. "Oh, I don't know about that. I just enjoy cooking for family." That's when Marcus spoke up from the head of the table, his voice carrying that dismissive tone I'd grown to recognize over the years. "Sarah, you're too kind, but let's be realistic here. She's no chef, just a housewife. There's a difference between making dinner and running a professional kitchen." The room fell silent. The only sound was the gentle patter of rain against the windows and the distant hum of traffic on the street below. I stood frozen in the doorway to the kitchen, a stack of plates in my hands, feeling as though I'd been slapped. "Marcus," Anna said quietly, her voice carrying a warning. But he continued, oblivious to the tension he'd created. "I mean, Petra's a good cook, don't get me wrong, but cooking professionally, that's a completely different world. She's never worked in a commercial kitchen, never had to handle the pressure, never had formal training. She's just a housewife." The word just hung in the air like a poison cloud. Just a housewife. As if the 15 years I'd spent managing our home, our finances, our social life, supporting his career while putting my own dreams on hold. As if all of that could be dismissed with that single, devastating word. I set the plates down carefully on the side table, my hands trembling slightly. Through the kitchen window, I could see the lights of Munich twinkling in the distance, the city where I'd once dreamed of opening my own cafe. That dream felt like a lifetime ago now. "I'll just get the dessert," I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. In the kitchen, I stared at the apple strudel I'd spent hours preparing, the delicate pastry, golden and perfect. My grandmother's recipe, passed down through generations of women who had also been dismissed as just housewives. My hands were shaking as I reached for the serving knife. 15 years. 15 years of being the perfect supportive wife, of putting his needs before mine, of making our house a home while he built his career as a financial advisor. 15 years of being told I was just something, when in reality, I was the foundation that held everything together. I could hear the uncomfortable chatter from the dining room, Marcus's voice rising as he tried to fill the awkward silence he'd created. But all I could think about was the moment 3 years ago when I'd suggested going back to culinary school. He'd laughed then, too, said we couldn't afford it, that it was impractical at my age. The apple strudel looked perfect on the serving platter, but I couldn't bring myself to carry it out. Not yet. Instead, I stood in my kitchen, the kitchen where I'd created countless meals, where I'd poured love and creativity into every dish, and I made a decision that would change everything. I was done being just a housewife. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of Marcus's alarm at 6:30 a.m., the same time it had gone off every weekday for 15 years. He rolled out of bed with his usual grunt, padding to the bathroom without so much as a glance in my direction. I lay there, staring at the ceiling of our bedroom, listening to the familiar sounds of his morning routine. The shower running, the electric toothbrush, the coffee maker automatically brewing his preferred dark roast. The events of the previous evening replayed in my mind like a broken record. After I'd finally served the dessert, to awkward compliments and forced smiles, the family had left earlier than usual. Marcus had seemed confused by the sudden chill in the air, but hadn't bothered to ask me what was wrong. He'd simply loaded the dishwasher and gone to bed, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the echo of his words. Just a housewife. "Coffee's ready," Marcus called from the kitchen, his voice carrying that automatic tone of routine. This was our life. Predictable, comfortable, and apparently, according to him, unremarkable. I found him at the kitchen table, already dressed in his charcoal suit, scrolling through his phone while eating toast. The morning light streaming through our window illuminated the gray threading through his dark hair, the slight paunch that had developed over the years of comfortable living. When had we stopped really seeing each other? "Late night last night," he said without looking up. "Sarah was laying it on a bit thick with the compliments, don't you think?" I poured myself coffee, my hands steadier than they'd been the night before. Was she? "Oh, come on, Petra. All that talk about you opening a restaurant. It's sweet, but let's be practical." He finally looked up, his brown eyes holding that patronizing expression I'd learned to hate. "You're 42. People don't just career change at our age." Our age. I sat down across from him, studying his face. "When did you become so dismissive?" He frowned, clearly not understanding the weight of the question. "I'm not dismissive. I'm realistic. There's a difference." "Is there?" I took a sip of coffee, tasting the bitterness. "Tell me, Marcus, what exactly do you think I do all day?" He set down his phone, looking annoyed at being pulled away from his emails. "What do you mean?" "You called me just a housewife last night. I'm curious what you think that entails." "Petra, you're being dramatic. I didn't mean anything by it." He glanced at his watch. "Look, I have an early meeting. Can we discuss this later?" "No." The word came out sharper than I intended. "We can't, because there's never a later with you, is there? There's just your schedule, your meetings, your priorities." Marcus's jaw tightened. "That's not fair. Everything I do is for us. For this family." "What family?" I asked quietly. "We don't have children, Marcus. We don't have family dinners where you ask about my day or show interest in my thoughts. We have a routine. A comfortable, predictable routine where I manage everything so you can focus on your career." He stood up, straightening his tie. "I don't have time for this conversation. You're clearly upset about something, but I have responsibilities." "Responsibilities." I repeated the word, feeling its weight. "Yes, I suppose you do. Just like I have responsibilities, like managing our household finances, maintaining our social calendar, keeping our home running smoothly, supporting your career goals, and apparently staying quietly in the background while you diminish my contributions to our life together. Petra, you're being ridiculous. Am I? I stood up too, facing him across our small kitchen table. Tell me, Marcus, when was the last time you asked me about my dreams, my goals, my feelings about anything other than what's for dinner? He opened his mouth, then closed it. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. I have to go, he said finally. We'll talk tonight. After he left, I sat in the quiet apartment, listening to the sounds of Munich waking up outside, the rumble of the U-Bahn, the voices of neighbors heading to work, the distant sound of construction. Life moving forward while I sat still. I walked to my laptop and opened it, staring at the blank browser page. Almost without thinking, I typed in the search terms, culinary school, Munich adults. The results filled the screen. Programs designed for career changers, evening classes, weekend workshops. My heart began to race. Then I opened another tab and searched for Divorce Lawyers Munich. The word felt foreign, even in my thoughts. Divorce. After 15 years of marriage, 15 years of being Mrs. Marcus Weber, could I really consider becoming just Petra again? My phone buzzed with a text from my friend Hannah, who lived in Berlin. How was dinner last night? Did Ingrid behave herself? I stared at the message for a long time before typing back. Can I call you? I need to talk to someone. Hannah answered on the second ring. Petra, you sound strange. What's wrong? Marcus called me just a housewife last night, in front of his entire family. There was a pause. He what? We were talking about my cooking, and Sarah suggested I could open a restaurant. Marcus basically laughed it off and said I was just a housewife, that there's a difference between cooking at home and being a professional chef. That bastard, Hannah said without hesitation. Petra, you're one of the most talented cooks I know. Remember that catering business you wanted to start 10 years ago? You had actual clients interested. Marcus said it was too risky, that we needed financial stability. And what about what you needed? Hannah's voice was getting heated. What about your dreams, your ambitions? You've been supporting his career for 15 years. When is it your turn? The question hit me like a physical blow. When was it my turn? When had I stopped asking myself that question? I don't know, I admitted. I think I forgot I was allowed to have a turn. Petra, listen to me. You're brilliant, you're talented, and you're still young. 42 is not too old to start over. Look at me. I didn't start my graphic design business until I was 38, and now I'm more successful than I ever was working for someone else. But Marcus can take care of himself. He's a grown man. The question is, what do you want to do with your life? I looked around our apartment, the home I'd decorated, the kitchen where I'd spent countless hours creating meals, the life I'd built around someone else's dreams. I want to cook, I said quietly. I want to create. I want to build something of my own. Then do it, Hannah said simply. And if Marcus can't support that, then maybe you need to ask yourself what kind of partner he really is. After we hung up, I sat in the growing morning light, feeling something I hadn't felt in years, possibility. The scared, uncertain feeling in my stomach was accompanied by something else, excitement. For the first time in 15 years, I was thinking about what I wanted, not what was expected of me. I picked up my laptop and began to research culinary programs in earnest. By the time Marcus came home that evening, I had a folder full of information and a decision that would change everything. Marcus came home at 8:30 p.m., later than usual, claiming he'd been in meetings all day. I had spent the afternoon researching not just culinary schools, but also divorce proceedings in Germany, property division laws, and my rights as a spouse. The information was overwhelming, but also empowering in a way I hadn't expected. "Smells good in here," he said, loosening his tie as he entered the kitchen. I had prepared a simple dinner, nothing elaborate, just schnitzel and potatoes. After last night's humiliation, I wasn't interested in impressing anyone. We need to talk, I said, setting his plate on the table. He sighed, the sound of a man who felt burdened by his wife's emotions. Petra, if this is about last night, I already apologized. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. Did you? I sat across from him, not touching my own food, because I don't remember hearing an apology. Well, I'm sorry if you took it the wrong way. I was just being honest about the restaurant business. It's brutal, Petra. The failure rate is astronomical. I was trying to protect you from disappointment. Protect me. I repeated his words slowly. By humiliating me in front of your family. I didn't humiliate you. I stated a fact. You're not a professional chef. That's not an insult, it's just reality. The casualness of his dismissal hit me like a slap. Marcus, do you love me? He paused, fork halfway to his mouth. What kind of question is that? Of course I love you. We've been married 15 years. That's not what I asked. I asked if you love me, not if you're accustomed to me, not if you're comfortable with me. Do you actually love me? He set down his fork, looking genuinely confused. Petra, where is this coming from? We have a good life. We have a nice home, financial security, a solid marriage. What more do you want? I want a partner who sees me as more than just a convenient support system. I want someone who encourages my dreams instead of dismissing them. I want to feel like I matter. You do matter. You matter to me, to our life together. Do I? I pulled out my laptop and opened it to the culinary school websites I'd been researching. I want to enroll in culinary school, evening classes, so it won't interfere with our routine. I want to pursue my passion for cooking professionally. Marcus glanced at the screen and shook his head. Petra, we've discussed this. It's not practical. The cost, the time commitment, and for what? So you can work in some restaurant kitchen for minimum wage. It's not about the money, Marcus. It's about doing something that fulfills me, something that's mine. But you already have things that fulfill you. You love cooking for us, for our friends. You're good at managing our home. Why isn't that enough? The question hung between us like a guillotine. Why wasn't it enough? Because somewhere along the way, I had stopped existing as an individual and had become just an extension of his life. Because I'm not just your wife, Marcus. I'm a person with my own dreams, my own ambitions. I'm 42 years old, and I've spent the last 15 years making your life easier, supporting your goals, being the perfect wife. What about my goals? Your goals, he said with that patronizing tone again. Petra, be realistic. You're not 25 anymore. You can't just decide to change careers on a whim. It's not a whim. It's something I've wanted for years. Something I've sacrificed for this marriage. For your comfort, for your success. Marcus pushed his plate away, his meal half-eaten. I don't understand why you're being so dramatic. This is about last night, isn't it? You're upset because of one comment. One comment. I felt my voice rising. Marcus, you called me just a housewife in front of your entire family. You dismissed 15 years of my contributions to our life as if they meant nothing. You made me feel small and insignificant. That wasn't my intention, but that was the result. And the fact that you can't see how hurtful that was, the fact that you're more concerned about defending your comment than understanding why it hurt me, that tells me everything I need to know about our marriage. He stood up, pacing to the window. So what are you saying? You want to blow up our life because of a misunderstanding. I'm saying I want to live my life, not just exist in yours. And if I don't support this culinary school idea? The question was a test, and we both knew it. I looked at him standing there, his back to me, his shoulders tense with frustration. This was the moment everything would change. Then I'll do it anyway, I said quietly. And I'll pay for it with my own money. Your own money? He turned around, his face showing genuine confusion. Petra, we're married. We share everything. There's no your money and my money. Isn't there? Because last time I checked, I manage our household finances, our savings, our investments. I've been doing the books for your business for years, handling client billing, managing appointments. I've been working, Marcus. I just haven't been getting paid for it. His face went pale. You're talking about divorce. I'm talking about respect. I'm talking about being seen as an equal partner instead of a convenient accessory. I'm talking about having my dreams matter as much as yours do. Petra, please. Let's be rational about this. We can work something out. Maybe you could take a cooking class as a hobby. A hobby? I stood up, feeling 15 years of suppressed frustration boiling over. My dreams are a hobby, but your golf lessons are a necessity? Your expensive wine collection is important, but my professional development is frivolous. That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant, because you see me as less than. You see my contributions as less important, my dreams as less valid, my feelings as less significant. And I'm done accepting that. The silence that followed was deafening. Outside, Munich was settling into its evening rhythm, but inside our apartment, 15 years of marriage was crumbling. What do you want from me? Marcus asked finally, his voice small. I want you to apologize. Really apologize, not just say you're sorry I was hurt. I want you to acknowledge that what you said was wrong, that you diminished me and my contributions. I want you to support my decision to go to culinary school, and I want you to start treating me like a partner instead of an employee. Marcus stared at me for a long moment. And if I can't do that, then I'll file for divorce. The words hung between us like a bridge we'd either cross together or burn down completely. I had never felt so terrified or so certain of anything in my life. You don't mean that, Marcus said, but his voice lacked conviction. I do mean it. I won't spend the rest of my life being just anything. I deserve better than that. I deserve to be seen, to be valued, to be supported. And if you can't give me that, then I'll find it elsewhere. Marcus sat back down heavily, his head in his hands. Petra, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be different. For the first time in our conversation, I heard something other than dismissal or anger in his voice. I heard fear, and maybe, just maybe, the beginning of understanding. Then maybe, I said gently, it's time you learned. 3 months later, I stood in the kitchen of Kochstelmünchen, wearing a professional chef's jacket for the first time in my life. My hands trembled slightly as I held the knife, not from nervousness, but from excitement. Around me, 15 other students, ranging in age from 22 to 58, were preparing for our first practical exam. Remember, Chef Weber called out, no relation to my soon-to-be ex-husband, thankfully. Cooking is about more than technique. It's about passion, creativity, and the courage to trust your instincts. The irony wasn't lost on me. After 15 years of doubting my instincts, I was finally learning to trust them again. The last 3 months had been a whirlwind of change. Marcus had initially tried to talk me out of both the culinary school and the divorce proceedings. He'd gone through all the stages: denial, anger, bargaining, depression. I'd watched him process the reality that his comfortable life was ending, that his convenient wife was choosing herself over his comfort. You can't be serious about this, he'd said 2 weeks after our confrontation, coming home to find me packing my belongings. Petra, we can work this out. I'll support your cooking thing. My cooking thing. I'd paused in folding my clothes. You still don't get it, do you? I'm trying to compromise here. Marcus, a compromise would have been you listening to me 3 years ago when I first mentioned culinary school. A compromise would have been you supporting my dreams instead of dismissing them. What you're offering now isn't a compromise, it's damage control. He'd stood in the doorway of our bedroom, looking lost. Where will you go? I found a small apartment in Schwabing. Hannah helped me look at places when she visited last month. I'd continued packing, Each item I placed in the suitcase, feeling like a small victory. It's tiny, but it's mine. And the money? The divorce settlement. I've spoken to a lawyer. I'll get my fair share of our assets. And I'll be working part-time at a restaurant downtown while I finish school. You got a job? He'd sounded genuinely surprised. I got a job. Sous chef position at Gasthof Lowenbrau. The owner, Herr Muller, was impressed with my skills when I staged there last month. Marcus had sat down on the bed, looking older than his 45 years. I never thought you'd actually leave. I know. That was part of the problem. Now, standing in the culinary school kitchen, I could hardly believe how much my life had changed. My small apartment in Schwabing was cramped compared to the spacious home I'd shared with Marcus, but it was filled with my own energy, my own choices, my own dreams. Time. Chef, Weber called out, and I stepped back from my station. I'd prepared a classic German dish with my own twist, sauerbraten with a coffee spice rub and homemade spatzel infused with herbs from my tiny balcony garden. As the chef moved between stations, tasting and evaluating, I caught sight of myself in the reflection of the stainless steel prep counter. The woman looking back at me was different from the one who'd served that fateful dinner 3 months ago. She looked confident, purposeful, alive. Excellent work, Petra, Chef Weber said, tasting my dish. The flavor profile is sophisticated and the technique is solid. You have real talent. Talent. Not just good cooking. Not just housewife skills. Talent. After class, I walked through the streets of Munich, breathing in the crisp April air. The city felt different now, not just a place where I lived, but a place where I was building something. I passed the restaurant where I worked 3 nights a week, the small cafe where I'd started having coffee with my classmates, the market where I bought ingredients for my experimental dishes. My phone buzzed with a text from Hannah. How was the exam? Are you ready for the celebration dinner tomorrow? Tomorrow was my official divorce day. After 3 months of legal proceedings, mediation, and paperwork, I would be officially single for the first time in 15 years. Hannah was coming down from Berlin, and several of my new friends from culinary school were joining us for dinner. I texted back, "Exam went great. I'm ready for everything." And I was ready for the uncertainty, the challenges, the freedom to make my own choices and mistakes. Ready to be more than just someone's wife, more than just a support system, more than just a convenient accessory to someone else's life. As I reached my apartment building, I saw a familiar figure waiting by the entrance. Marcus stood there, looking nervous and somehow smaller than I remembered. "Hi," he said simply. "Hi." I stopped a few feet away, studying his face. "What are you doing here?" "I wanted to see you. To talk. Tomorrow is our divorce day, yes." He nodded, looking down at his hands. "I've been thinking a lot these past months. About what you said, about what I did wrong. And you were right. About everything. I did dismiss you. I did take you for granted. I did treat you like you were less important than me." He looked up, and I saw something I hadn't seen in years. Vulnerability. "I'm sorry, Petra. Really sorry. Not sorry you were hurt, but sorry I hurt you." I felt a small knot in my chest loosen. "Thank you for saying that. I know it's too late for us. I know I had my chance, and I blew it. But I wanted you to know that I understand now. You weren't just my wife. You were my partner. And I treated you like an employee." "Marcus, I saw the review in the Süddeutsche Zeitung about the restaurant where you work. The food critic mentioned a talented new sous chef with innovative takes on traditional German cuisine. I knew it was you even before I saw your name." I smiled despite myself. "You saw that? I see everything about you now. Your Instagram posts from culinary school, the photos of your dishes, the way you look in those pictures. Happy. Really happy. Happier than I ever made you." We stood there in the fading daylight, 2 people who had shared 15 years of life and were now saying goodbye to that chapter. "I hope you find someone who sees you from the beginning," I said gently. Someone who supports your dreams instead of dismissing them. I hope you find someone who deserves you, he replied. Someone who knows what a gift it is to be loved by you. The next evening, I sat in my favorite restaurant surrounded by my new friends, classmates from culinary school, colleagues from work, Hannah, who had been my anchor through this transition. We were celebrating not just the end of my marriage, but the beginning of my new life. To Petra, Hannah raised her glass of wine, who had the courage to choose herself. To new beginnings, added my classmate Stefan, a 50-year-old banker who'd left his corporate job to pursue his passion for pastry. To following your dreams, said Maria, my colleague from the restaurant, who'd immigrated from Spain and built a successful career in German kitchens. As we toasted, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. It had started with a humiliation, a moment when I'd felt invisible and insignificant. But that moment had been a catalyst, a wake-up call that had forced me to examine my life and make the hardest decision I'd ever faced. I wasn't just a housewife anymore. I wasn't just Marcus's wife. I was Petra, chef, student, independent woman, someone with her own dreams and the courage to pursue them. I was someone who mattered, someone whose contributions had value, someone who deserved to be seen and supported and celebrated. What's next? Hannah asked as the evening wound down. I smiled, thinking about the business plan I'd been working on, the small cafe I'd dreamed of opening, the cookbook I'd started writing filled with recipes that told stories of transformation and new beginnings. Everything, I said, everything is next. As I walked home through the streets of Munich, I felt lighter than I had in years. The city sparkled around me, full of possibility and promise. I was no longer just surviving. I was living, creating, building something beautiful with my own hands and my own heart. The girl who had once dreamed of opening a cafe was still there inside me, and she was finally getting her chance. Not as someone's wife, not as someone's support system, but as herself, talented, valuable, worthy of respect and love and success. I was no longer just anything. I was everything I'd always been meant to be.